We are. Okay, good. We are live, in fact. And we're talking today about how to stay the course. How to stay the course for a singing career without experiencing the pressure and the stress and the frustration that so often accompanies this career, so that you can walk through this journey with real joy, with real accomplishment, and so that you don't give up before the success has found you or before you have found success. So to me, there is one major culprit that cuts careers short for even the most talented singers before they've even had the chance to flourish. And so today, what I want to do is I want to go hunting. And I want to hunt this thief down, this thief who steals the careers and the journeys of talented singers. And I want to take out this thief before they even do any more damage. And I'm sure you're watching this and you're wondering, who is this thief? Who is it? You've got your whole team around you. You've got voice teachers. You've got coaches. If you're a recording artist, you've got producers, co-writers. You've got agents and managers. But amidst all of these people, there's someone else that's actually been running the show for a lot of you for a while now. And they are the saboteur. And they are so very good at influencing your singing, your decisions, your career choices, that you don't even notice that you're being manipulated. And so when you listen to them, it never turns out well. So it's time to blow the whistle on them. It's time to fire them from this job that they have held for a long time. And who I'm talking about is your inner critic. Your inner critic. We all have one. It's just some are louder and more abusive than others. And you guys, I read your comments on my YouTube videos and your posts in the Pro Singer Success Collective Facebook group. And when I talk to singers in our intensive program and in Vocality Lab, you guys are so hard on yourselves. It's like inner critic run riot. And so you're really used to beating yourself up, and you're used to getting beat up by your inner critic so much that you don't even recognize how bad it is. Like it's like an abusive relationship. You know, if a woman has only ever been in abusive relationships with men, then she thinks it's normal because that's all she's ever known. And so some of us guys don't even realize how abusive our inner critic is and how badly we speak to ourselves, because it's always been that way. We don't know any different. But can you imagine how that affects the voice, your sound, your technique, your ability to make an impact in performance? Because we physicalize our emotions and our thoughts. It's just part of what we do as humans. We carry them in our body. And so if you have a permanent resident in your head who is beating you up, you are carrying that in your body too. And so now you go to sing, you go for a recording session, a very important audition, an important performance, and you're afraid to really go for it and trust your body and trust your technique, because your inner critic berates you with how inferior you are. And so you don't believe that you can do it. And so you don't. And so you back away from that connection to your support, and your sound suffers. And you're in your head instead of the moment of the song. You're so in your head, and then your connection to the audience suffers. And you don't want to unleash that beating that your inner critic is going to give you if you don't sing well, perfectly to your potential. So what do? You overcompensate. You go into make, force, do, manipulate in an effort to control the outcome of that sound in that performance. And now your pitch suffers, you're in tension and strain, you're pushing, you're overdoing, and you've lost your connection to your technique. Not to mention, you've lost your connection to your audience because you've come across as trying too hard. When you've got an inner critic, guys, who's not in check, it's really hard to stay the course. I mean, how many of you, I see we've got a bunch of you watching live with me right now. How many of you experience this, like, berating from your inner critic? You're never going to do it. You're not good enough. Why would you ever think that you could do this? You're going to botch the high note. Everybody else is better than you. Like, how many of you have that going on in your head? Don't be shy. Like, tell me in the chat, because this is real. This is not something that like I'm making up here. Not only did I used to experience it early on in my career, but also so many of the singers that I coach, whether it's in our intensive training program, Vocality Lab, like this is like hurdle number one is learning how to relate to yourself differently, because the way that you talk to yourself and the beliefs you hold and the lies that you believe, because you guys, inner critic, it's just lying to you most of the time. It causes an effect in the body, which if you know me, I talk about this all the time. It affects the sound, the outcome, and the efficiency of your voice when you perform, when you sing. And so when you've got an inner critic who is not in check, it becomes really hard to stay the course and empower yourself to do everything that you need to do to build a free and fearless foundation for your singing, and to take action and inspired risks on the things that will move the needle to where you want to go so that you can have success. Because it wants to prevent you from experiencing anything bad. And so it's just going to beat you up before anybody else can do it. And so, how could you stay the course with that inner critic in there sabotaging you? So, you've got to fire the inner critic. Fire the inner critic, guys. That is something that, like, if it's never occurred to you to do, listen to what I'm about to tell you, because it really, really makes a difference. So, I have students in our intensive write out actual termination letters to their inner critic. Dear inner critic, your position has been eliminated. We're taking the company in a totally different direction, and your services are no longer needed, right? Like, fire your inner critic. It thinks it's there to do a job to help stop you from being embarrassed or failing, but it's actually creating more failure, more embarrassment, more roadblocks along the way than if you just decided, you know what, I'm in control of this ship, you're fired, right? Because if you don't fire the inner critic and align with the voice of your true self, then you will forever and ever be run by your fear. And that will keep you playing small, both in the kinds of sound that you're able to make and experience the true potential of your voice, and in how far you will go in the opportunities that you're willing to go for that could actually take your career to a successful level. So you've got to fire the inner critic and align with the voice of your truth, your true self. The true self is aligned with compassion for you, for others. It can look inwards at all of your insecurities with honesty and courage and acceptance. It allows you to be vulnerable and take risks because it doesn't judge you. The true self knows you are perfectly imperfect, just the way you are. It is unconditionally loving, accepting, and its presence is there for you to tap into at all times. And when you're in insecurity, self-doubt, and shame for all the ways that you perceive you're inadequate, please know that it is not your true self talking. When you perform from that place, you are not performing from your true self. When you sing from that place, you are not singing from your true self. It's just the ego mind in the form of the inner critic thinking that it can scare you into not failing at your passion, at the job you need to do with your voice, at whatever it is, your health, your relationships, whatever it may be. The thing that the ego mind is the most terrified of is failing. And so the ego mind has created the inner critic as a means of protection. It thinks that if it beats you up enough and scares you enough, that you won't fail. But we all know how that works out. So we've got to fire the inner critic. And it's going to try to come back. It doesn't like being fired. But when it does, you get to detach from it and you get to laugh at it like, inner critic, oh my gosh, you're so predictable. I fired you a month ago, remember? And here you are trying to come back and take your job. Sorry, not sorry. Bye. Oh my God, you're so predictable. Like, you're really trying to come back and take my job and tell me I'm not good enough. Come on. So it's like, it's that humor, that, making light of it. And then it allows you to realign with your true self and listen to that voice. That is the voice of your uniqueness, of your power, of your vulnerability, of all the things that make you a great performer. But most of us are not used to listening to that voice of our true self. It is practice to learn how to listen to that little voice, the voice of your truth, instead of listening to the loud, screaming inner critic who's like, danger, danger, it's if it's screaming at you, it's the voice of your fear and your inner critic. If it's that small voice of knowing inside, that's your true self. And so you've got to know what the voice of your true self sounds like. Listen for it. Get well acquainted with it. Invite it to spend more time talking to you so that you can learn to pay attention to it instead of all the counterproductive messages of the inner critic as it tries to come out of retirement every time you fire it, especially when you sing. Get in touch with that voice of truth when you practice, so that when you're practicing your vocalises, your technique exercises, if that voice is coming in like, you can't do this, you're never going to get it. Why am I still vocally tired? Why isn't this working? All the things like you're not talented enough. You're not this enough, that enough, when you're even practicing. So in your practice, use that as an opportunity to, oh, I see you, inner critic. Oh, look at you. You're so predictable, trying to tell me I'm not good enough again, trying to tell me I'm never going to get it. Didn't I fire you? Right, I did. I'm going over here. You're on Elba Island in exile, So it's like, even in your practice, learning to know what voice is talking to you and start to relate to it differently. And I want to tell you the story of a singer of mine. Her name is Grace. Some of you may know her. She's a recording artist who records, she's been doing this for a really long time, and her records were just totally languishing. She'd pour her heart and soul into them and then hate how they came out, and even more hate how she sounded. And she always felt like that she sounded so amazing when she was just alone writing her songs, but then something would happen in the studio when she'd go to record and she could never get that same amazing sound. And she was so critical of herself. It was like chasing bad take after bad take after bad take, beating herself up. And she was doubting her talent, doubting if she was really good enough to do this. And she was at her wit's end and not sure if she should throw in the towel. And that was the point at which I met her, when she came to work with me and my team. And so through our work together, Grace got in touch with that true self. When she realized that she had a voice, she was not a voice. Singing is something she does. It's not who she is. The inner critic was making her feel super inadequate, which was why she was putting so much pressure on herself when the producer hit record and why the sound wasn't good. And so working the steps of our program, she broke through that block. It took her learning how to employ some really radical self-care to get out from under the grips of her inner critic. But with that learning, she could finally catalyze her technique and free her voice. And when she did, big things started to happen. She won the grand prize of Best New Artist competition, which was a big development deal. She released her new record, and then she posted this in our Facebook group, and I want to read it to you. Excuse me. She said, let's see, I'm reading it. She said, last year, had you told me my badass band, who I didn't even know last year, would play at the Crowfoot, so she's in Detroit area, so it's a big venue in Detroit, for $5,000, and then the Detroit Metro Times would cover it, I would not have believed you. We are stoked. This is real, and it's happening. So this is what happens when you learn how to sing and perform from your truth. And you're not scared of that, of being seen as that, because there's no inner critic beating you up for how inadequate you are. And how do you unleash that, though? Because I know that's like the question, right? How do you find the voice of the true self? How do you quiet the inner critic? And you could go to meditation classes, yoga, exercise can do that, therapy, right? All of these things help to some degree, but where they fall short for singers is in connecting that and connecting that learning that you get from meditation, from therapy, to the moment of singing. It could take years doing it piecemeal that way. And that's why me and my team work with singers the way that we do, because who wants to wait years for things to connect when there's a much more direct road to get you out of these old habits that are sabotaging your best singing and your shot to success? And so if you're done doing it piecemeal and you want direct guidance and actionable tools to sing in a way that builds the best foundation upon which to stack success, then I want to invite you to book a discovery call with me. So what a discovery call is, it's a free call. It's not a voice lesson, okay? It's a discussion where I'm going to support you and we're going to get on the phone for 30 minutes or so to get clarity on what is your current mindset around your singing? What is the gap between where you are and where you want to go? How is it affecting your technique, your sound, the ways in which you are putting yourself out there or not putting yourself out there, and the results that you're getting when you do? Plus, I know that you might want my help and my team's help to transform your singing and your career. And if so, we can discuss it and see if it's a good fit for both of us. And so if you're watching this right now on the Facebook, I'm going to put this into the chat. And if you're watching on YouTube, it'll be in the comments. So this is the link to book the discovery call. Okay, that should be up on YouTube, and let me put it in Facebook as well, because we get to be live on a couple of platforms. All right. So I want also to make a gentle reminder for those of you about who this call is for. If you have not had hardly any technical training, then this call is really not for you yet. You need that first, right? Because if you're not getting the results that you want, but you haven't had any training, well, of course, there's a lot of stuff that you don't know. But this would be a great time to get moving on that. But if you have had training, whether it's one-on-one training, you've done workshops before, you've done, and I'm not talking about watching YouTube videos. As much as I know you guys like to do it yourself, that's not training with an expert, right? But if you have had training with an expert and you're not seeing the results of all that training in the form of the successful career that you want, and your inner critic is really loud and constantly sabotaging and holding you back from singing the way that you know that you can, and holding you back from taking actions to put yourself out there in really meaningful ways in your career. And more than anything, if you're constantly beating yourself down, and so this journey is just not enjoyable anymore, and you'd rather quit than constantly feel like you're a failure, then, oh my God, get on my call calendar. Do not waste any more time. Do not be another casualty of the inner critic. Schedule a call. We'll sort out what's not working. We're going to lay out a step-by-step strategy for you to get out of your head, align with your true self in the moment of singing, and make much more of an impact in your career so that you don't give up before the success. And I will let you know if you would like our help to do that, to implement it, then we will talk about that. So click the link, set up a short call with me today. Get in touch with who's talking to you inside your head this week. Is it your inner critic? Is it the voice of your true self? As you notice how much of the inner critic is running the show, start to have some conversations with it that distance yourself from it so that you can align more with that voice that serves you instead of the voice that sabotages you. All right, you guys. Have an amazing day. Get on my calendar if you want that discovery call to talk about how we might be able to help you and what's really going on with your singing. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.